What is going on, everyone? We are here with another video, and today we are here to talk about the NHL season. We're going to talk about every single team and potentially my playoff predictions. I made this about a month and a half ago. So when you see my standings and playoff predictions, especially the playoff predictions, it's not the greatest playoff predictions. I'm going to explain why I think these two teams that I have are going to go to the Stanley Cup. And then we can kind of debate on who might win it from there. But it's a long season. We obviously know injuries happen. I mean, hell, look at football right now. There's injuries for like every single team, and some big players out. We know that every other year in sports, like they have these injury bugs that go around where like stars just get taken out like flies, and it's really terrible. So let's hope that doesn't happen with the NHL. Knock on wood. I hope they have a great season, healthy season for every single stars. But yeah, here we go, man. Like we're gonna come into this and have some freaking fun. We're gonna start with the East, then we're gonna go to the West. So let's just get right into it and see how fast I can do this and get teams under my belt. So I do have a PowerPoint, just so you know. So I'm such a baller. But Boston is a team that is very curious. Obviously, due for some expectations. They want to be better. They want to be a playoff team again this year. Number one, they're in a very tough division where many teams look like they want to be a playoff team. Boston, especially, are very intriguing just because it's like one of those teams that if they aren't successful, what are the question marks? Are they going to consider trading someone like Swayman? Are they going to consider trading someone? I don't think they trade Pasta, but you never know. But I just wonder how long they're going to give this team to kind of get back in the run, because if they are a very terrible team to start, do you just try to sell the farm? Because you kind of have to, right? Like you kind of have to sell the farm to try to get better. And um, you know, I think a lot of fans are hoping for a bounce back year. I think obviously Boston, just that's what all they're looking for. Try to be. They might not get in the dance, but I think they're just hoping that they can get close to the wild card. But we'll see. I think this team has just made some very poor decisions. I think the GM has maybe a little bit of questions because, you get rid of Bruce Cassidy, he goes and wins the Stanley Cup, and then you get rid of Montgomery after having a slow start last year, and then he took, you know, St. Louis to the playoffs. So maybe they just need to consider a different move, and we'll see what Boston can do. Buffalo. Buffalo's an interesting team because every year on paper, they look like a great team. Like when you think of the team that they have great defensemen. You know, the goaltending is pretty solid. Um, it's just it never matches up. Whether that's the scheme maybe just isn't great. Sometimes they can't get the scoring going. Sometimes they can get the scoring, but they just can't get the defensive help or the goaltending help. This is a team where I think the GM is probably on the chopping block. I don't know if they fire Lindy Ruff, even though I think they should. I think a lot of people need to look at Pete DeBoer. I know that he's probably not the guy that you want. I've said he needs to go to East teams because I think his chances of going to the finals is way easier. But I just don't think Buffalo's a great team with the head coach and the front office. I don't think that's going to be the case. This is a team that has produced Stanley Cup caliber people for the last few years. Obviously their former captain Jack Eichel, Kyle Poso, Ryan O'Reilly, Reinhart, a lot of these guys coming from the Sabres organization have won cups in the last few years, and especially a few of them winning it the year after they leave. So it's going to be a tough thing for Buffalo to get into the postseason because they were one of the second to last teams last year in their division and or last. And they just have too many people in front of them that I think have a lot more veteran leadership, have better coaching. And at the end of the day, I think if they were just put into a mini little series, I think they would lose. Detroit has a mixture between young and veteran players, which I think is very important. They obviously go out and get John Gibson, which I think is a very important move, for Detroit. I think Detroit really does have a shot. Number one, they have to take advantage of every little thing that goes their way. Detroit the last few years have been unlucky because they just get off to these stretches or these starts that aren't great. And then, I believe it was 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, they were just like a game away of making the playoffs, and they needed help to go their way. They needed another team to lose, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. And they played their butts off, and they won the final game. But unfortunately, they didn't go to the postseason. And it's just one of those things where I think Detroit is ready to make a step in the right direction. They have their young players who look ready to go. Their veterans, if they can continue to produce like Patrick Kane and all these guys, they have a real good shot at making some noise and trying to get into the postseason. Unfortunately enough, I just think this division is so tight that if Montreal continues to do their thing, if Ottawa, who looks very strong, does their thing, I think it's going to be very difficult to try to get into the wild card spot, just with those two teams alone who made the postseason last year. Florida's interesting. Now, when I made this, I had the intentions of putting Florida as obviously one of the top teams in the league. I think that they're strong. I definitely think they're older. But there's nothing wrong with older teams. When you look at a lot of teams around the league, there's a great mixture between old guys, veteran guys, and young / just rookies. And Florida has a decent mixture, but I think it's mainly older players. Obviously, there was question marks because Matthew Tkachuk, when he's out, that's out for a long time. I believe it's January to February. That's a long time without Matthew Tkachuk. And now they lost Barkov. So now you're losing two of your top players, and Barkov probably out for the entire year. Going to 4 Stanley Cups is hard. Your body's going through a lot. If you go to 4, it's just crazy because the way the game was played now, you play so hard, they play so fast, they play so many more games. It's just a tough thing to go through. They had a tough series against Vegas. Then they had a tough series against Edmonton. Last year it was obviously a little easier, their route, I think. And then this year they're just going to get hurt. And I think the biggest thing is even if Barkov was healthy and Matthew Tkachuk is healthy, they were going to be over the cap. So somebody was going to have to play out of their lineup and they were going to have to play a man down. This is a very intriguing team this year. They always get off to slow starts. They always get off to kind of like rough patches where they'll win a game, lose a few, win a few, lose a few. Like the back and forth until finally they start stacking up wins. I definitely think Florida is still a playoff team. I think their team is still solid enough to make the postseason. I just wonder, with this division being so tight and so strong, could this team even fall out to a wild card spot? Now, I just feel like with a lot of the talent that they have, I doubt it, and I know a lot of people probably doubt that, but we can't take that out of the question because Florida has just been so dominant. But how big are the injuries? And it takes one more big injury for them, especially on the defensive side. If Ekblad goes down, this team will be in the wrong direction quickly. Montreal is a very young team where they have such a lot of guys getting into their primes. Caulfield playing amazing hockey. Caulfield has been one of those guys where I feel like most of his seasons in the NHL have been solid. I think Suzuki does need to take a step up. I feel like there's some years where he is better than others. He needs to have a really good year. Obviously, they have Hudson. They went and got Noah Dotson. And I feel like their goaltending is relatively good. I feel like they could make a run. This is a team that I feel like is way better than a lot of people want to give them credit for. As long as their young guys could produce, then this team could make noise. And we got to remember, they were slow last year, right? They were slow from the start of the season up until that halfway point where they started to rack up wins. And Montreal started getting on that heater where they just kept winning and winning and winning. So if Montreal could have a more steady year this year, they're probably going to be up more in the rankings. But we will see. Ottawa, I think, is a great team. I like their forward group. I like their defensive group. As long as Allmark can continue to play his game and the way we all know him to be, I think we should all expect that um, the greatness, I guess, that comes from it. Because I think that Ottawa is in a very good position. They're in a very tight position as well. I don't think that anybody could look at this team and say that there is really a sour spot, I guess. Um, I think obviously you got to look at coaching. You got to look at. I'm looking at projected lineups right now. That's why I keep looking down. But when you look at their lines, like at least their fourth line seems gritty. Now I am concerned about like Cousins if he plays, because obviously Cousins has been the antics he does sometimes. I feel like it just ruins games. But I like their top two lines, and their third line is nothing to shy away from. So they have a lot of great forwards. Um, it's all about goaltending. Can they get the most out of their goaltending? And I think they can. I think that you really can get the most out of all three groups. The Ottawa Senators are definitely one of the top teams in the league, in my opinion, especially when it just comes to the forward group. So, I think that if you're deep in the forward group, then you will have success. Tampa Bay, known for their success over the last few years, obviously. People say they overachieved last year, obviously without Stamkos, and I just think this team is still good. I'm a little concerned that the older that they get, like when will they slow down? Will Cirelli slow down? Will Hagel slow down? Point slow down? Hedman, Vasilevsky. But they're relatively good. Obviously, Tampa, they just want to get out of the first round. Like, they got into the Cup Finals multiple years in a row, and and I think they really wish their team can get past the first round, and I think they could do that this year if they just continue to grow and continue to be an offensive presence. But I like Tampa Bay. I definitely think they'll be in the playoffs this year. It's just all about how far they can get after that. Toronto. All right, I'm going to be that guy. Toronto's kind of on fraud alert. All right, like Toronto is a team that I just don't get, because especially with their fans. I mean, like Mitch Marner is a crucial piece of the puzzle, a crucial piece of this team. Was a crucial piece of this team on the power play, on the penalty kill, on every single aspect of this team, and now he's gone. And I'm not saying Matthews, Nyes, Tavares, and Nylander are not going to do great. But my thing is, I just think they take a slight step down. And my thing is, when they get to the postseason, I don't think the guys that you got are necessarily going to do anything really impactful. I don't know if you get out the first round. Even if you do, I don't think you get out the second. I don't think that Toronto is that great. And I have a question for Toronto fans. If you get out the same exact way that you've gone out in years past, who do you blame now? Do you blame Tavares? I'm sure you're gonna blame whoever gets like a very nasty penalty or gets a breakaway chance and misses it, because that's just how Toronto fans are. But I'm just very curious. Who are you gonna blame after this? Because it was Mitch Marner for the last 2 years. Oh, fire Mitch, get rid of Mitch, trade Mitch. And now it's F Mitch. But then what's gonna happen if it's Willie or Matthews? I'm very curious. I don't like their goaltending. It's not that strong, but as we know that in the playoffs, it doesn't really matter as long as you could have a good run, that you don't need to be a top goaltender to get paid, $15 million. I don't like their defense core, and I don't like their depth when it comes to their top six. I think Waugh is a great player. I think their fourth line is honestly the biggest concern as of right now. But we'll see. Carolina making the moves this year. They obviously go out and get Miller after losing Burns. I think that is a very good upgrade. I mean Burns is a solid defenseman, but going out and getting a younger guy who could probably do a little more is very important. And I think that really shows you guys what this team wants to do. They need to get past that Eastern Conference final. Unfortunately, I like to see trends in the every league. I see trends in football, especially with Joe Burrow's injuries, and I see a trend with Carolina. Every other year, it's been out first round, out in the East. Out first round, out in the East. So my calculations are correct. Out in the first round sounds really legit. But if they can get their scoring depth just going, I think that they have a really good shot. Their forwards are really good. I think they could roll 4 lines. For sure 3. Their defense core is solid. I think goaltending has always been relatively good. It just gets to a point in the playoffs where offense slows down, defense doesn't do that great, and goaltending just can't make some big important saves. It just happens, Sometimes you can't be perfect, right? Um, there are rumors that they're potentially going to get the hockey people. I have heard actually yesterday that they are no longer interested in McLeod or Hart, which is great. I hope other teams follow suit, including the Vegas Golden Knights. I really hope, because I do not want them on my team. I don't want any of them on my team. I think everyone can feel the same every level. I think all 32 fan bases can agree. But I definitely think Carolina is going to be a team this year that is good. It's just all about, once they get to the postseason, can their depth get them all the way? And I think it could, especially with this year, how the East is looking. Columbus, a lot of people said overachieved last year. Obviously did well with all the Johnny stuff, a tough season to play. And at the end of the day, I think that this was an important season for them. I think they could do good. I think they have a mixture between veterans and young guys that can make a push. I don't think that they are championship level, right? I don't think that they are going to win the cup, but I definitely think that they are a potential wild card team that slips in and says, "Hey guys, Columbus is here. Columbus's future is bright, and we are maybe a free agent or 2 signing away and a rookie to really pop off for us to be in the dance." And I think that's just all that's important for Columbus right now. New Jersey. Now, I don't like to go with the trends. A lot of people have the Devils winning the Stanley Cup this year. A lot of people have the Devils winning the Eastern Division this year. Eastern Conference, sorry. And I don't know if I feel the same. When you look at their goaltending, they have a great duo. I like their duo. Their defense is good. Their forwards are good. All 3 stages, they have everything. Here's what concerns me about the forwards. Is that just some of them get quiet too easy. And Hughes, especially, gets very quiet sometimes. He's a great regular season guy. But he's one of those guys where, if he makes the Olympic team, which I assume he would, he needs to have a great Olympic. Because he looked awful in the Nations 4. He was just skating. That's all he was there for. I would really like to see him step up his game, because he needs to step up his game in the postseason. He needs to be up there with everybody else. And like I said, I think this defense is solid. I think you have 3 great defensemen. So you need to take advantage of this, especially this year. You guys are also in a tough division. But you guys are more likely to, get a spot than a wild card spot if you can continue to play well. And we'll see what the Devils do this year. But they need to step up, and they need to have Hughes just have a good year after coming off of his injury that was brutal. The Islanders. A lot of people forget that, this team, just because they had the first overall pick, they weren't the worst team last year. Now, do I think they're winning the cup? Absolutely not. I think that you can't, go draft a rookie who does have a lot of upside, but then also get rid of Dotson and then feel like that's just going to fix everything. Their goaltending, I think, is just too old, in my opinion. Getting a little there, and I don't really like both of them. I feel like the Islanders just don't make that much noise any cycle. I think they have good forwards. I just don't think they have a deep enough squad. I don't have high expectations for this team, but I think it's just all about developing your young guys. I'm curious on how far the leash is for Waugh. But yeah, I don't know how the Islanders are going to be this year. I really don't. The Rangers, a lot of people have faith that the Rangers are going to bounce back. Similar to Toronto, they just had to break up with some of their guys, right? They traded, they get Gatto Miller out of the room. Who was it? traded. Oh my God, I forgot someone to the Ducks. I can't remember the name for the life of me right now. But you still have a decent core. You hopefully brought in guys that are gonna make an impact. You have a lot of cap that hopefully you can get a big star next year potentially. Um, I just don't know how I feel about all levels of their game. I don't think their depth defensively is the greatest. I don't think their depth on the forward groups are the greatest. Now their goaltending I think is solid. I think you continue to have great goaltending, and I think that this is important, especially when you have one of the best goalies in the world. But you just got to give him an opportunity to show what he's got. And I think the Rangers could be in the dance this year. I just don't see them cementing themselves as a top 3 team in their division, let alone like the entire NHL. The Flyers, new head coach, similar to New York, and I think he can get the most out of his core. If there's going to be a team that shocks the entire NHL, I think it's Philadelphia, to be 100% honest with you guys. They're a team that has been terrible for so long that I really just feel like they have that opportunity to take the next step of being the best team. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, right. No, but when you look at their forward group, including adding in Zegras, if he can get the most out of Zegras, they have Tippett. They have so many young, talented forwards that I really think that they should be scoring left and right. Their defense is in a decent position. I'm not going to say it's in a terrible position because I definitely think that I've seen worse defensive units. Their problem is goaltending. They don't have the greatest depth, and I don't even think they have the greatest number 1. So that's really my only concern with Philadelphia, is that I just don't know how far they go with this forward group, because just because you have that doesn't mean that it's easy to win games, because you need a goaltender to steal you some games. So let's see what Philly can do. And yeah, I have a little bit of faith that they can make a little bit of noise this year, but we'll see. Pittsburgh. One of the most interesting teams because we don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to trade all of their guys? Malkin, this is probably his last year as a Penguin. I don't think it's his last year in the league. Do they trade Letang? Do they get Carlson out of there? Do they trade Crosby? Crosby said he doesn't want to leave, and I honestly don't think Crosby wants to get traded on his contract. I think Crosby is one of those guys. I think you would want to finish out his contract with Pittsburgh, kind of give him a last hoorah, and then maybe sign somewhere else for the last few years of his career, or the last year of his career, depending on how much longer he wants to go, So that's going to be very interesting to see. I don't think their goaltending is the greatest. I know they went out and got a young goaltender. Their defense isn't really that great outside of, I think they just need to get better at all 3 stages. I think selling the farm is probably the easiest thing you could do. Even if you want to keep Crosby, you can still make some moves. But I know one thing's for sure. I know a lot of people are saying, well, Montreal would definitely get Crosby. Oh, well, he would want to go with his best friend, and play with Nathan McKinnon. I'm going to tell you right now, I do not care about the rumors. Every single team, all 32 teams, are going to go for Crosby. I think teams that have solidified number 2 and 3 centers are going to go after Crosby. I would not be shocked if we get the news. Freaking Sidney Crosby has been traded to, and then it is Florida or the Vegas Golden Knights. Because I think Vegas Golden Knights are one of those teams that'd be like, okay, we'll give you Hurdle. We'll give you a top prospect that we have in our pool. Hell, we'll also give you our top prospect defenseman. And we'll give you a first-round pick just for a year or 2 of Sidney Crosby. I think a lot of teams would do the same. I think a lot of teams would throw a lot more his way. So I think, in my opinion, if I'm the Penguins, if you eventually trade Crosby, you need to get a huge haul for him, because it makes you a contender in the future if you can get a lot of picks back. And a guy like Hurdle, I say that because you kind of want a solidified guy that could maybe stay around for a little bit, and you could then trade to get even more draft capital, later down the road. But yeah, I don't know how this team's going to work. I would love it if they could make some noise and just prove the doubters wrong. A lot of people are just like, oh, they're taking for the first overall player, which honestly would be kind of awesome for the Penguins to get. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that this team is this team definitely has a shot at getting the first overall pick. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year. I just don't think they have great depth. A lot of their best players are old. I don't know how that's going to work. Speaking of old, I don't think we've ever gotten it official, but potentially the grade 8s last year. And I hope not. I really hope not. I think I like watching Ovi play. I think it'd be funny to watch him, maybe somewhere, that he has a different opportunity. But yeah, I'm very curious what Crosby could do, and I'm very interested if, or Ovechkin could do. I think this team takes a slight step back this year. Now, I might be wrong, but I think they just think about how magical that run was. Similar to how, like, when you think about the last few magical runs, think about Boston when they went into that crazy, they had one of the best seasons in history. Then the next year, it wasn't that great, and they got out in the first round of the playoffs. Then a time I can think about that is like St. Louis, great season, kind of fell off after that, but not like entirely. Vegas, great first year. I think a lot of people forget that second year for Vegas was very, very wonky. So I think a lot of people do forget about that. Hell, it was their last two seasons, their second and third seasons. They made the playoffs both times, but it was still so wonky. That's why they had to make a head coaching change the third season. So I feel like they just had such a great year last year that they have to take a slight dim down. And I mean, whether that's Ovi's production or maybe the players' production around him, I think as long as you have a great goaltending duo, especially with Logan, I love Logan Thompson. I think he's a great number one. I think his biggest problem is getting comfortable in the playoffs is really what we need him to do. The defense core is not crazy, and I think the forward groups are okay. I just feel like if you play a team that's a little younger, you're going to have problems. Like if you play a team like New Jersey, I think you can out-physical them, but I think they're just going to be so fast that it's going to be tough to stop them. But I definitely think that Washington has an opportunity to make a little bit of noise this year, and let's see if they can get a deep run, one last deep run for Ovi. Chicago, they just got to trust their young players. They got to be able to be like, hey, we gotta get the young players going, right? We got to get the young players going. You got to have faith that the young players can just do what they need to do. You got to have faith that Bedard has his season. Now, in preseason, he's looked unbelievable, making a lot of great passes, making very good shots. I think everybody, including Blackhawks fans, want to see this kid break out. And, especially with how good Cirelli did last year, I think a lot of people are like, God darn it, why isn't Bedard doing that? I honestly think that Bedard, this is his season. They got to continue to build around this team. I like Spencer Knight. I think that this team is just like San Jose, where they're trying to get their picks going, so in the future they could be a very dominant team. And, I think this is the first stage of that you got to have a solid year this year. Prove a lot of people wrong. Try not to be the last team in the West this year. And hell, even if you are, go get McKenna, because honestly, that would be a great duo. Colorado kind of on fraud alert. And I don't want to say that because I do think they can make a deep run. But here's my thing. I just feel like you have a good head coach. Here's where I have a problem with this team. They never have the best goaltending, which has never stopped them in the past. Like, when you consider the year they won the cup, it's like it's not terrible, right? I think that their defense is great, but it really just relies on their top defenders. Their offense is very top six heavy. It is really reliant on the top six guys, and then the bottom six is whatever. They have to get the Nashus stuff figured out, because obviously you don't want to have another situation like Mikko Rantanen and trade him halfway through the year and, then just have a shit show, right? And I don't even know who would go for him. Maybe you could trade him to a division rival like Dallas, but no, that's just not gonna happen. Yeah, good. Yeah, Johnson for Nations trade, beautiful. Both guys can't get paid, and I just think that this team's very top heavy, and I think if they play a team like Vegas, that has a very depth team, then they're not going to be successful. But we will see. I think Colorado always kind of overachieves sometimes, and then when they get to the postseason, they underachieve. So we'll definitely see how Colorado does in that aspect. Dallas is a very good team. Now, here's my thing: goaltending, Ottinger's the guy. Defense, you have good defensemen. You have a great forward group with a lot of great scorers. The drama with Robinson, I think that's a very key part of how this team's going to be this year. If they can get a deal done, or if they have to trade him. Here's my thing though: are we expecting Dallas to win these close games and close series again? Remember, DeBoer was undefeated in Game 7s. I always joked and said, "Geez, like they literally just need to get to Game 7s and they'll win the cup every year." I think that this team, with a new with a new head coach, changes everything and changes a lot of how I feel this team's going to be. Maybe he could finally coach them over the hump and take them to the Stanley Cup final. But I think with a first year head coach, it's very unlikely that he has a season like that, like Florida had with Paul Maurice and Bruce Cassidy did with Vegas. But it's not impossible. So we'll see. I just think another thing, their defense, their forward depth, I think is a concern. I think that once again they face a team that is similar. If you face a team that's similar to them, it's all about whose stars answers more. And then if you face a team with depth, all it takes is the third and fourth lines to really hurt this team. Minnesota. Now, they got the Kaprizov drama taken away. I really feel like this team could get some noise going, and I think Kaprizov, if this team is healthy, a lot of people forget this. If this team is healthy, they might make a deeper run, and they might make an extra spot, and they're not in the wild card. If this team could just stay healthy. Now, that's a big ask. I think they have a really good solidified number one goaltender. I think they're hoping that their younger goaltender, could be a really solid backup. I feel like their defense is good. Their offense is good. They both have young players on both sides that are coming in that are kind of like you kind of need to get something from them. I'm trying to think. I don't know if that one kid who played in the playoffs last year is playing, but if he is, that's a very important thing because you need your young players to produce. And I do think this team could be very dangerous, and if they could steal not a wild card spot and steal one of those solidified spots, and especially have home ice advantage, I think Minnesota could be a dangerous team in the West this year. I know they have the recent playoff history where they just can't get out the first round. I think Minnesota, if they just can get their group together, they could easily do it. Nashville is one of those teams that is very curious. They need Stamkos and Marchessault to go back to where they were. They obviously came here and did not play well. They're hoping Marchessault can become that 30-goal scorer again, almost 40. They're hoping that Stamkos could also become that goal scorer. They're really hoping that these guys can get better. This is a very older team, too. A very older team where I think a lot of people forget that Stamkos is older, Marchessault is older, Ryan O'Reilly is older, Yossi is older, Forsberg. Saros is obviously in the decent age, but the biggest question for Nashville is just Barry Trotz and his decision making. Like, how long is he going to give this team to make noise? If this team is very bad at the the Olympic break, hell, if it's bad before the Olympic break, does he start shipping people out? And I have a question: who are you shipping out? Are you going to ship out Stamkos? Are you shipping out Marchessault? I think you definitely can get Ryan O'Reilly out of there. I think the team would get him. But my big thing is, do you get rid of Marchessault Stamkos? Because here's the problem. You're going to have to take some cap. You're going to have to take some money because no one's paying for Marchessault on the contract you gave him, especially because he's on the wrong side of 30. And Stamkos also didn't look good and isn't worth his contract. So you're going to have to eat some cash. Do you trade Yossi because you know you could probably get a lot more for Yossi out of the other two? I don't think you trade Forsberg because I feel like that would be your captain if he goes. But do you trade him too? Do you just start from scratch? Trade all these older pieces away and then, have so much draft capital for the next 4 years that all of a sudden now you're just drafting. But I don't know. I don't think this team is going to be great. But if they could just unlock their scoring ability, I think that the older players can get going. I don't think they make it far in the postseason, though, even if they do. St. Louis, they'll have a full year under Montgomery. I think that this team is still good. I think they have great goaltending. I think their forward grouping is great. I think their defense is probably their one side that I think is a little concerning to me, I guess, but they still have great defensemen. They took a lot of big risks last year, and I think they all paid off. I mean, they were close, man. They were close to getting out of that round and winning, and I think a lot of people, I know, listen, just because you were close doesn't mean shit. And I get it. I really do. But I do think the St. Louis Blues are a team that can make some noise and can really be a wild card team that is hard to get eliminated. That's just how I feel. Utah, a lot of people are high on Utah. I'm not. I don't think they have the goaltending. I don't think they have the forward group. I don't think they have the defensemen. I think if they go against a lot of these other teams, if they go against Winnipeg, if they go against the Stars, the Avalanche, the Wild, Edmonton, Vegas, hell, even LA, I don't think they win. I just don't think they have the team yet. I don't think they have that team yet. They have to rely on their young guys to produce, and I don't think they're just there yet. I don't think they're going to hit their peak. Keller's obviously been amazing the last few years, but I just don't see Utah making a lot of noise. I really don't. Winnipeg has great goaltending. They have great players in Morrissey, Scheifele. Losing one of your top scorers is obviously a big deal, but I definitely think that, Kyle Connor, who they need to get signed, and obviously the faster they can get him signed, the better. But I definitely think this team is still good. You have the best goalie in the world. You don't have a terrible defense, and you have a decent forward group. And when I mean decent, when I say decent, it's you have at least 3 lines that could probably get the job done. When you have a great forward group, that means you have 4 lines that could roll out, and hell, you probably even have guys that are in the press box that could get in and make some damage as well. And I think that Winnipeg definitely can make a little bit of noise. It's just all about, can they finally get over the hump, and can they finally get into at least maybe the West? Can they maybe get into the They gotta really beat just one of these great teams that could be oh my goodness, they are for real this year. But we will see. Anaheim is a team that I think definitely can make a little bit of a better impact this year. They obviously have a very physical defense. They have their relied number 1 goalie. Now I think that their forward group is pretty solid. I think they have now 3 lines and maybe even 4 that really can come at you. Now, I don't think they're necessarily great lines. I don't think that they are going to make, shiver me timbers, I just don't think they're that great yet. But I definitely think they're trending in the right direction. I think they have a head coach that maybe can get the best out of them. He hasn't coached in a minute, so let's see. But I'm very curious on what this team could do. You're in a tough division, though, and it's going to be interesting to see if they try to aim for a wild card spot. But, I don't know. Goaltender. This is a team that it probably has they have the goalie, they just don't have the rest of the team. Now, Calgary always has great defensemen. What is Rasmus Anderson's contract looking like? Are they going to trade him away? Are they going to sign him? Who knows? I think their forward group is okay, but once again, it's not the greatest. I think they have to rely on a lot of their younger guys coming in. I definitely think they could be maybe in that wild card scenario, but I don't think that they will make noise. They did go on a really good run last year, but I just don't know if you hit that same gear. And it's all about, well, who ends up getting traded. Who ends up getting traded if you do trade somebody. And Wolf did play well, and I hope that he continues to play well. Obviously, he got that huge bag, so now he has, I think, a public eye pressure, because obviously if he has a very bad season, then a lot of people are going to look at that extension and be like, what in the are we doing? But we'll see. Edmonton. I might be the only person in the world that say that he is not going to win, that they're not going to win a Stanley Cup. I think they got worse. You're relying on two young guys to come into the lineup and immediately produce at a high level. Perry's gone, who I thought was a very good depth player for them. I thought that the same thing for Evander Kane. I thought Evander Kane, has struggled his time over the last few years, and getting into Edmonton, especially with all the drama that was circulating around him before he went to Edmonton, it was just one of those things where it's like, can Edmonton unlock Evander Kane? And I thought Evander Kane did very well for the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of injuries, but I think every time he was on the ice, his presence was felt. I don't think their forward group is great after the top six. I think that their third line could possibly make noise with their youngsters, but I don't think so. Their defense, not great. When it comes to, I think Bouchard is obviously the guy, but I think that just too much overpaid. And then the biggest elephant in the room is McDavid. Does he sign? Does he not sign? As of right now, of me recording this video, I'm recording it on October 3rd. He has not signed his contract. He has not signed his extension, and it sounds like he doesn't plan on signing it. So, if I'm Edmonton, you got to look at what's going to happen there. Their goaltending, they go out and get Connor Ingram, who I don't think is a very big upgrade from Pickard. You have your goalie, who I think is relatively good. He has gone to 2 finals. He hasn't gotten any help. And honestly, if Skinner gets onto the market, I think he can make $5 million. And if a team doesn't want to give him that much, hell, I would give him a contract just so he could be a backup for the Vegas Golden Knights, because that would be a really great depth for us. I think Skinner's a guy that could definitely win us games, especially with our defense group. He's just like a lot of other goalies, where I think there's sometimes one passes him that shouldn't, but a lot of times he's getting peltered by the other team because there's no defense. And I'm really curious on McDavid, because if he signs a long-term extension, because it sounds like if it's a short-term, okay, it's not going to be that bad. It's going to be around $16 million, $15 million. If it's long-term, we're looking at maybe even in the 20 category. And if that happens, Edmonton has no future. Edmonton won't be able to get any more forwards, which means they're going to be stuck in hell. I don't even know. They're going to have to go get the equipment guy to play goaltender, because they're not going to afford Skinner, and they're not going to afford Ingram, and they're not going to afford all these other guys. They're literally going to have to get pennies on the dollar goaltending, because they're just not going to have enough cap, at least for the first 2 years of his contract, until the cap continues to go up. The Kings. Kings are also a team that I just like. They're good, but they're not great. Every year they're not great. If they play Edmonton again, I think they still lose. I think if they play Vegas, they lose. I think if they play, any of the Central teams, I think they lose. I just don't think the Kings will get far. Their goalie can only get them so far. Their defense can only get them so far. They need to rely on a lot of their young players. Kopitar's last year, so we never know what happens there. But they just feel like a team that they have one gear. They have one gear. If they're healthy, they have one gear. And if they make it to the postseason, they can't change gears. They don't have a second gear. They just don't. So I'm very curious on what's going to happen with the Kings. San Jose, not going to spend much time on this team. Listen, they just got to rely on their young guys. They're hoping to get a few more wins than last year. Maybe instead of a 20-win team, maybe they're closer to a 30-win team. This is a young group that is going to continue to develop together and continue to get better together. And the more they could do that, the more that this team looks more scary for the future. And maybe, I'm not going to say dynasty just yet, but definitely could be a pain in the ass team for the next few years when they all start heading into their primes. So San Jose is just a team that we're expecting not to do great, but in a few years they could be. Seattle doesn't really have that. I don't think their future is great, especially this is a GM that I definitely think that, I believe the GM actually stepped down. But this team just sucks at giving contracts out. I love Stevenson, but his contract is way too high for how much he does. And I mean, he is a great player, but he damn sure ain't a $9 million player. I believe it's his contract. Grubauer is on an awful deal as well. We all knew that the moment he signed that contract. They need to rely on their young guys like Shane Wright, Beniers, and hopefully some of their other draft picks over the last few years come in and maybe make a little bit of more of an impact. A lot of their guys from their year, they don't have the same effect that Vegas did, where they had that, like, they really just had that expansion line where it was like, oh my God, these guys are our guys. And I guess they do have that in like some of their older players, but it was really Vegas when they had young forwards that all were together, like youngish forwards that grew together and were really deadly together. So Seattle really doesn't have that, and they got to rely on free agency and all these other things. But we'll see how Seattle does. I don't think they make a lot of noise. They try to copy our homework with the glow in the dark jerseys. No, but I just don't think this team's really in a great place. I don't. Vancouver's a team that I can't really put my finger on. They're a team that is just like, you kind of want to say yes, and you kind of want to be like, oh yeah, they're gonna for sure be a team that is gonna go. I think if their scoring could work, they have decent enough players to get it done. They need a great year from Elias Pettersson. I don't hate their defense. And I feel like when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, he is one of the best. If not one of the top two. I think Makar is always going to be there. Their goalies are great. If Demko stays healthy, which is a big ask, they have the good duo that I definitely think this team can make a deep run. It's all about how their forwards react. Now, with that being said, I'll show you guys where I have them in the standings. The Vegas Golden Knights, I think that they did a lot of great things. They, in my opinion, have the best forward group out of every team. They have the best they have a really solid top line, second line, third line, fourth line, and even a guy or two in the press box that could step in and make some noise. Their defense is really solid. I think that the biggest loss they had is Pietrangelo. But when you look at their losses, they lost Haig. I need to get kind of going because Haig, Waugh. Then they got rid of they didn't sign Samsonov again. Olofsson and Tanner Pearson are the guys I could for sure remember they let walk. And Victor Olofsson. They let him walk. And they replaced them with Lazan and Pietrangelo with Korzak, which Korzak has been in the NHL forever with Vegas. He's played a lot of games for injured players, so I think he's a solid addition. And then Mitch Marner and Sissons. Sissons replacing Waugh is great. And here's the thing. Vegas has had the second best power play, I think, at the end of the last year. And they rarely take penalties, but they had one of the worst penalty killing units ever, which is crazy because we used to have a shite power play but a great penalty kill. This year it flipped. This year I think they're hoping to have a top 5 power play and a top 5 penalty kill. And I think adding a guy like Marner and Sissons is going to help that tremendously with guys that you already have like Carlson, Eichel, Stone, and Riley Smith. I think I think Howden does really good on the penalty kill too. They have a lot of penalty killers now that I think could make that team really good. Hill, I think, just needs to take a step up. I think that the biggest question mark is Akira Schmid, who I hope has a good year. He looked really good against the preseason game, in the preseason games. I know they're preseason, but I still am hoping, because I do not want, I'm going to full screen, I do not want Carter Hart, and I swear I'm going to be so upset if we get him. So I hope to pray that we do not go after these schmucks and do not go after these people. We have a good team. If you want goaltending, Samsonov is there. I don't want him either. I would rather give up anything I have to just try to convince Fleury to come out of retirement to be our backup goaltender at that point, because I do not want that guy on my team. And I really think Schmid could actually do good. I believe in Schmid. I really freaking do. I believe in Schmid. But I think Vegas is going to be good this year, and I think that they're probably the best team in the West. Just like how I think Carolina is the best team in the East on paper. Now, with that being said, we're going to look at this real quick. Vegas, Edmonton, the Kings, Vancouver, Calgary, Anaheim, Seattle, and the Sharks. Then we have Winnipeg, Avalanche, Dallas, Minnesota, St. Louis, Utah, Predators, and the Blackhawks. We have the Canes, the Devils, the Caps, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Islanders, the Penguins. Then we have Tampa Bay, Toronto, Florida, Ottawa, the Habs, Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston. That's what I think the standings are going to look like. And now I don't want you guys to pay attention to the sides, okay? Do not pay attention to the sides. Because I think the sides might change now because of recency bias, because number one, because of what happened to Florida. And, so this is what I think will be the Stanley Cup final. This is how I had it on paper, which means, by the way, actually I should have gone back. The playoff teams, I think, are going to be Vegas, Edmonton, the Kings, and which, like I said, this is going to be iffy. The Jets, Avalanche, and the Stars. I think these are your two wild card teams here. These two teams will be in the hunt, but I think these two teams ultimately take it. I think that Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, the Devils, Canes, and the Caps, these 6 teams are going to be in it. And I am going to say that these 2 teams go back to the finals for sure. Go back to the playoffs. And then that's how you get this. Although I definitely think that Tampa probably could beat Florida in this game if obviously Tampa's still a man down. But we're not going to focus on the sides. We're going to focus on the Hurricanes and the Golden Knights. Now, the reason why I have these 2 teams is because, simple, their depth and their coaching. Now, if I don't want to pick a winner because obviously I don't want to be biased, but this is how my thought is. If these 2 teams did meet in the finals, goaltending is pretty much even, although you can make the argument Vegas might have the slight upper hand because their goalies won the championship. Defense is pretty solid, although as much as I love Hannafin and Theo as the top unit, I feel like you kind of got to give the edge to Carolina. And then the forward groups, I think, are very even. But I have to slightly give it to Vegas because I think their 4th line and 3rd line are probably better than a lot of other teams' first lines and second lines. And maybe that's not true, but definitely could be second lines on other teams. I just don't think that Carolina has that 4th line, 3rd line. But let's just say they have an evenly forward line. I would give it to Vegas just because of coaching. I would give it to DeBoer, who is... whoa! I'm cutting my tongue off. I can't believe I said that. I'm giving it to... because I looked at Dallas as I was saying it. We have Bruce Cassidy. Bruce Cassidy, I think, is a better head coach. Has proved to win as a head coach. If you could win it as a head coach, that's awesome. I understand he's won it as a player. Great. Good for you, bud. But Bruce Cassidy won it as a god darn coach, and that is what is important. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions. Do you guys think I'm going to go back to my standings real quick. Do you guys agree with if you agree with anything in this video, do you at least agree with the standings? Do you think that this is relatively okay? You know what's funny too? I made this video I made this PowerPoint, I think a month, maybe even a month and a half before the hockey guy, because I love his videos. he had similar rankings. I don't know if it's the exact same. I hope it's not, because people are going to think I stole that shit. But I think it's relatively almost, we have the similar playoff teams. We have the same Stanley Cup final, and he chose Vegas. So maybe probably for the same reasons I did. But that's going to be it for me. Let me know what your guys' thoughts and opinions are. I love to hear them. And hey, man, hockey season's back. I can't wait to follow it. And obviously, I didn't say it, but hopefully Jack Eichel gets this extension. It sounds like it's happening. It's probably going to be around the $14 million mark, especially with the Kaprizov contract. We're going to stay tuned to that. But I love you, beautiful people, to death, and I will see you all later. Have a good night and day whenever you guys are watching this video. Peace.